This document outlines the 106th Amendment, the Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam. It mandates a 33% seat reservation for women in legislative assemblies. Historically, female representation in India's lower house rarely crossed the 15% threshold. The Prime Minister and the ruling party have utilized this legal milestone on the campaign trail, presenting the passage of the bill as a clear dividing line between their administration and opposition groups they describe as dynastic parties. In recent speeches, the Prime Minister explicitly accused opposition members of cheerfully clapping and thumping their desks while they were actively stripping women of their rights in previous sessions. By framing the legislation as a pure victory for equality, the government secures a rhetorical advantage. Any politician or citizen attempting to critique the structure of the law risks appearing morally regressive. But if this quota represents a settled legal victory, a logistical question emerges. Why are these seats not reserved for the current round of elections? Looking at the legislative timeline, the Lok Sabha officially passed the bill in September 2023. Yet an attempt to speed up the rollout for the 2029 elections was blocked entirely in the lower house just days ago. The delay exists because the bill contains a specific legal catch. The implementation of the women's quota is constitutionally tethered to two distinct future events: the publication of the next national census and a subsequent process known as delimitation. By tying the start date to the census, the law ensures that this victory for women's representation is now legally anchored to a future massive realignment of the country's electoral map. Delimitation is the routine redrawing of electoral boundaries. The objective is to ensure that each elected official represents roughly the same number of citizens. This chart breaks down the current composition of the Lok Sabha, which is capped at exactly 543 seats. When those boundaries are recalculated using modern population data, states with rapidly growing populations mathematically gain a larger share of the total seats, while states with stable populations lose their relative representation. Because of that math, the delimitation process dictates which geographic region will control the national government for the next few decades. You can see the imbalance clearly on this population density map. The dark blue patches highlight a massive population concentration in northern states like Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. This demographic reality is creating intense friction with southern states, specifically Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, and Kerala. For decades, these states focused on controlling their population growth through widespread education campaigns. We can trace the success of that effort by looking at literacy rates. The darkest blue zones shift to the south, showing how their high education levels directly correlate with their stabilized birth rates. To leaders in the South, tying representation to the new census feels like an outright penalty for success. They successfully followed national development metrics, and as a direct result, their electoral leverage is going to shrink. The long-term risk here is the creation of a permanent geographic divide. Southern states produce immense economic value for the country, but they face a future governed by a central authority heavily dominated by northern voters. By legally linking the women's reservation bill to this specific redistricting process, the government secures tremendous leverage. The push for female representation acts as a political shield for a massive structural shift in demographic power. Opposition politicians have started attacking this strategy directly. Leaders like AAP's Sanjay Singh are accusing the central government of deliberately misleading the public to obscure the mechanics of the law. That sentiment is appearing in the broader public conversation. A scan of recent social media shows the word bewakuf, meaning fool, appearing constantly in debates over whether voters are being manipulated. This is a textbook legislative maneuver. By prioritizing a universally supported cause like women's empowerment, a party can securely pass the legal framework needed to redraw maps in their favor. The primary challenge for the opposition is cutting through the emotional appeal of the law to force a public debate on the structural changes embedded inside it. Yet, even the most carefully crafted political narratives eventually encounter local electoral limits. This headline reports on the ruling party's concession in Ayodhya, the specific site of the high-profile Ram temple. It's an outcome that suggests symbolic framing can sometimes fall short when it clashes with the immediate concerns of the voter. As this university guide points out, the defense against narrative misdirection is actively deciding to think rationally and scientifically, purposefully overriding our instinct to rely on snap judgments. In an era of bundled legislation, A citizen's best tool is a willingness to inspect the fine print of every bill, regardless of how virtuous the title sounds. The Nari Shakti Bill guarantees a necessary increase in female political representation, but its delayed timeline reveals a harsher reality of governance. The borders you draw on a map are often far more consequential than the promises you make to the public.